In this video, we're going to focus on discussing the social environment. As one of the 5 dimensions of the external business environment, the social environment is very, very important, and businesses spend a great deal of time evaluating it. Often referred to as the socio-cultural environment, the social environment deals mainly with ultimately society and how the society in which the business operates in ultimately impacts and affects that particular business. And so some of the things that we look for when evaluating a society and trying to determine ultimately what its impact on business is going to be are things like the beliefs of a society. Obviously, these change depending upon what society that you operate in. We also look at things like norms, those kind of unwritten and undocumented rules. We look at things like demographics, right? The actual makeup of the society presents different opportunities and also presents different challenges as well. On top of demographics, we also are going to look at things like consumer preferences that are constantly changing. And as a result of that, businesses really need to spend a great deal of attention to make sure that the preferences of consumers aren't necessarily changing for the worse and making it so that the particular goods and services of that company aren't out of date. They have to try and stay current, and part of that is evaluating and making sure that the preferences of consumers is in line with what ultimately the business is actually doing at that point in time. So let me give you some examples of how this might look, and a few examples ultimately of some changes that we've seen over the past several years or so that are making an impact and what businesses are doing in response to that. The first thing that I want to mention here, and this falls under the category of demographics, which is obviously a big one there, is the changes in the Hispanic population here in the Central Valley of California. And we see a very, very rising Hispanic population in the Central Valley. It has been for a number of years, is going to continue to rise at a very rapid rate. And so that presents some very significant opportunities for different types of businesses. What we've seen just initially is a great deal of advertising and promotion that is geared towards the Hispanic population. Simply because of how large they are in number, and obviously that can command some spending power as well. And so that's a very, very big thing, is having the additional advertising expenditures, because you're trying to attract that large group. And by advertising, of course, we're attempting to get customers to purchase our particular products, but also just to be aware of us. And so we've seen that rise at a very significant rate. We've seen different products actually tailored towards the Hispanic demographic because, once again, just the large number of Hispanic individuals, but also the spending power that accompanies a demographic of that size simply cannot be ignored. Another big shift that we've seen, another example I'll give you, is with regards to consumer preferences, and you probably are at least somewhat aware of, unfortunately, Hostess, the maker of the iconic Twinkie, is going through the liquidation process and has filed for bankruptcy protection back in early 2012. And they had a number of different things that unfortunately they failed to do, but among those was failing to adapt to changes in consumer preferences. And that was a very, very big thing, because one of the changes that has happened within the last several years is a shift towards healthier lifestyles. And we've seen just a lot of restaurants have changed menus to healthier offerings. There's been a kind of a shift with regards to the population in terms of priorities, and we've been almost awakened to some of the health effects of not maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and that's caused us to kind of shift things a little bit. And so that change in consumer preferences was very, very impactful to Hostess, and they made some attempts to try and diversify their product mix to sell some healthier offerings, but unfortunately it was nothing that really stuck in the minds of consumers and in society at large, which was a very big issue for them, and one that ultimately led to declining demand for their products and ultimately led to their uneventful or unfortunate demise, I should say. So as I've mentioned before in past lectures, understanding one environment over the other, it's not going to necessarily help you because you can't change them. But what the benefit it will provide is it's going to allow you to see some of the shifts that are taking place, right? See shifting consumer preferences if you're evaluating the social environment properly and accurately. And then maybe you can put yourself in a position to leverage that, maybe shifting towards that demographic, things like Whole Foods, for example, different restaurants offering and promoting their healthier offerings. They're trying to take advantage of that shift in consumer preferences, which can only be done if you do some careful analysis and take the time to properly evaluate the environment.